Today's project is the layered filigree bracelet. I want to go over the supplies first before we get started. And actually what I'm going to do is lay them out in the order that I'll be working with them because I think it's a little bit more organized to work that way. Let's start with the base of the bracelet. What I have here are some pewter rings in an antique finish. And I'm going to do this project a little bit differently. I'm going to mix my metals up. So I'm going to put the gold in between the copper. Next, we'll be working with some filigree to attach. So I have 3 butterflies here. I'll be putting these antique brass butterflies with the copper rings, so I'll lay them side by side, as you can see. And then I'd like to put the antique copper squares with my gold rings, just so I can get a little bit of a contrast there. And lastly, we'll be finishing it with a clasp. These have a textured finish, and if you're looking for them, you'll be able to find them in your bead store. They're made by Tierra Cast, which is a pewter company that is based on the West Coast, but most bead stores do carry a lot of these items. And as far as size goes, I have a caliper here so I can measure it for you. These are about 25 millimeters, so that's the size ring you're going to be looking for. And then these are standard clasps. The butterfly is about 31 millimeters wingspan, and the square is roughly 15.5 millimeters. And what's nice about this is it actually does fit right inside of the ring, and I'll show you that when we assemble it. Okay, and then the other items we'll be using are you can use jump rings, but I like to use chain that's in an oval shape. And this one is nice because it has a textured finish to it. I do happen to have some gold and some copper here. I will decide which ones I'm going to use when as we go along. But these guys are about 6.5 by 9 millimeters long. And what's nice about chain this large is you can separate it and you don't have to worry about cutting it because it already has a seam. So you'll be able to take your pliers and just open up the links and use them like jump rings. And for this project you need 24 of them. So 24 links is what we're looking for. We will be finishing the project at the end with some embellishment. So we'll be using 10 crystals or any kind of bead you want to use. I like to use also some metal beads to put on either side of the crystal. So I have some also made by Tierra Cast, some antique gold and some antique copper, little sort of spacer beads, which I will stack on top of each other on one of these head pins, and then we'll attach them to the bracelet after it's been assembled. Okay, so let me set some of this stuff aside so it's not in my way. This stuff I won't use right away, so I'm going to put this over here, and I'll put this over here. Okay. Probably would be a good idea to also talk about the tools I'm using. I like to work with 2 chain nose pliers because it gives you a better grip when you're opening and closing rings, and we'll talk a little bit more about that once I get started with that. One thing that's important about tools, make sure that you have a nice smooth surface on the inside of your tools so you don't have any ridges or teeth because you don't want to mar your metal. So that's very important. We'll also be using round nose pliers and some cutters, some flesh cutters, once we attach our beads, so we'll be using those. But we're starting off with our chain nose pliers. I'm going to open the rings off camera and then we'll have them ready to go. Okay, I've opened up all of these links and I'm going to assemble the bracelet now. I did make a mistake earlier in the video. There's actually 29 little rings that you need for this project. So I've laid them out in the pattern that I'm going to use them. So let's start assembling.